Debbie Ashby, former English glamour model, 1985. Pretty Woman, Judy Landers, American actress, 1979. (1935), Washington, D.C. or vicinity. Streamlined bus and car, Evans Motor. June 1943. Arlington, Virginia. A soldier treating his date to a Coke in the service shop at Idaho Hall, Arlington Farms, a residence for women who work in the U.S. government for the duration of the war. September 26, 1916. Boys of Wanganui Technical College, New Zealand, during an engineering class. June 1863, Gettysburg Campaign. Fairfax Courthouse, Virginia. Captain J.B. Howard, Office of Assistant Quartermaster, and Group at Headquarters, Army of the Potomac. I purchased this slide dated December 1959 at a swap meet. There was no other information printed on it. Where could this be? July 1942. An electric arc welder at a large southern boatyard examines a bead he has just run on a steel ramp boat which will be used in making beach landings of men, tanks, and other equipment on hostile shores. Higgins Industries, New Orleans. September 15, 1937. Although she weighs only 88 pounds, 1/3 of the machine she rides, Mrs. Sally Halterman is the first woman to be granted a license to operate a motorcycle in the District of Columbia. February 1952. From photos by Gerd Botts and Jim Hansen for the Look magazine assignment. West Point Story military officers from the United States Military Academy class of 1950 who fought in the Korean War. Circa 1908. Hennepin Avenue, Minneapolis. Our title comes from the sign over the White Sewing Machine Company store. No caption. It's 1932, somewhere in the vicinity of Washington, D.C., and these boys are en route to points unknown via Shanksmere. Happy trails. October 24, 1935. Washington, D.C. E.L. Wallace, acting chief of the leather section of the Bureau of Standards, shown with the endurance shoe tester. April 24, 1920. Overalls Parade. A demonstration against profiteering that took its name from the overall strike, a fad that had people wearing overalls to protest the high price of men's clothing. (1925). Miss Virginia S. Caldwell of Carbondale, Illinois, visiting Washington with her family. Buffalo, New York, circa 1911. Lafayette Square. November 1903. Assembling Room, Leland Falconer Manufacturing Company, Detroit. Men working in foundry and machine shop that produced automobile engines and merged with Cadillac Motor Company in 1905. November 1912. New York. Family cutting embroidery in tiny crowded bedroom. For complete details, see Miss E.C. Watson's report. December 1942. Production. Mercury. Loading mercury ore into a mine car by hand at the New Idria, California, plant of the New Idria Quicksilver Mining Company. Circa 1942. We've lost the caption for this photo of a lady operating yet another war-winning widget in Factory Town, USA. What is she making? Past and present in locomotives. Eckington Yards, June 4, 1923. March 22, 1948. Brooklyn Terminal Market, Flatbush. Manson Clay Products client, who must be very proud. July 1955. Frank Sinatra's gambling in the sewer scene from the film Guys and Dolls. What better place to have the oldest established permanent floating crap game in New York? Eckington Yards, June 4, 1923. A rare and unusually detailed look at the Baltimore, Ohio Rail Yard in Washington, D.C., during that year's big gathering of Masonic lodges. September 1942. New York City. First Chinese seaman granted shore leave in wartime America. Chinese seamen on United Nations vessels may now obtain shore leave in American ports. Washington, D.C. Rock Creek Park scenes young women in automobile. Vine-covered cottage with a girl-covered coupe. Bert and Iva's daughter Helen is home to Wausau, Wisconsin, from California with the new baby. While baby sleeps, the grandparents and parents play a lively game of Monopoly. Brigitte Bardot, French film actress. Photo 1959. Augusta, Georgia, circa 1903. Albion, Hotel and Confederate Monument. (1931) Washington, D.C. Men holding long snake skin. New Zealand ca. 1920s. Hunter with quail photographed by Frederick N. Jones of Nelson. June 1943. Washington, D.C. Hattie B. Sheehan, a streetcar conductor for the Capital Transit Company. July 1942. Florence, Alabama, vicinity. Counselor at Boy Scout camp swimming and canoeing. Edge of Burn District, corner of Franklin and Sacramento Streets, San Francisco. Aftermath of the April 18, 1906, earthquake and fire. Annapolis, Maryland, 1892. Class of 94, U.S. Naval Academy. Malden, Massachusetts, circa 1906. Pleasant Street from Malden Square. August 21, 1959, somewhere in New Zealand. Two women with four small children in a pushchair on a city street, probably Wellington. Washington, D.C., in 1919. Sandwich vendor. Another look at the Model T. Fall 1941. Jackson, Michigan. Threshing wheat. Farmers drinking beer. September 1943. A Greyhound bus trip from Louisville to Memphis and the terminals. Roberta Locker, going to Chattanooga from Elora, Tennessee, to work. Washington, D.C., circa 1922. New Jersey Avenue SE from B Street. Circa 1906. Elks Place, New Orleans, Louisiana. Brought to you by Anna Held. Forgotten New Orleans. The old criminal court building and parish prison in the background. New Zealand circa 1902. Unidentified family group outdoors, probably Christchurch district. Savannah, Georgia, circa 1906. Loading a phosphate schooner. Washington, D.C., in 1919. Street lunch vendor. A Model T sandwich vending machine. Johnny Cash in 1968, near the Arkansas farm where he grew up. Going to Memphis, no doubt. DeLand, Florida, circa 1905. New York Avenue. Looking a little like New England with palm trees. November 1938. Visalia, vicinity, Tulare County, California. Miners Cooperative Farm. 10 families have been established on the old ranch of 500 acres. November 1903. General Office, Leland Falconer Manufacturing Company, Detroit. Bonus photo for you, a beautiful retro woman. Enchanting blonde Sabrina Coronado, 1960s photo shoot. Charming American model. Photo 1975. Betty Page was an American photo model who starred from 1950 to 1957. Photo 1955. January 1943. At the information desk at Union Station, Chicago. June 1939. Mother and child, Agricultural Day Laborer family in camp near Spiro, Sequoia County, Oklahoma. New Zealand circa 1902. 3 men at campsite doing odd jobs, showing one man chopping wood, one man doing dishes and the other man cooking, possibly Christchurch district. October 1938. Factory workers' homes in Camden, New Jersey. March 1943. Fort Madison, Iowa. In the train control room at the Shopton Shops of the Atchison, Topeka Santa Fe Railroad. Testing pneumatic train control equipment. This rack is used for testing about 8 different parts of the apparatus. May 17, 1940. Phipps Garden Apartments, 5101 39th Avenue, Long Island City, New York. Clarence S. Stein, architect. Hanging with a big girl whose feet touch the ground. Kodachrome taken by my dad in New Orleans in February 1956. March 25, 1937. Close-up of front elevation Old William Henderson Store, Miller's Ferry Post Office, State Road 28, Kenton Bend near Camden, Wilcox County, Alabama. Built 1858. 1923. Washington, D.C. Marathon dancers. Circa 1906. State National Guard Armory, Worcester, Massachusetts. (1932 or 1933). No caption dancers in ballroom. April 1961. Sunbathing with the latest swimming pool equipment, including a lounge chair with floating beverage holders and game table attachments. August 1942. Vultee Aircraft Company, Nashville. Using an electric drill on a fuselage in a sub-assembly section. Another boy putting an airplane together during WW2. August 1942. Nashville, Tennessee. Vultee Aircraft Company. Drilling holes for rivets in a fuselage on a sub-assembly line. Somewhere around Los Angeles circa 1958. Aluminum group furniture, chairs, ottomans, tables, designed by Charles Eames for Herman Miller Incorporated. (1937). Mrs. Mary McLean, Skyline Farms, Alabama. The Jersey Shore circa 1905. On the beach at Ross Pavilion, Ocean Grove, New Jersey. July 1942. Florence, Alabama, vicinity. Boy Scout camp swimming class. Circa 1905. Euclid Avenue, Cleveland. Our title is a call out to Madam K. Peel, dealer in human hair goods, pompadours, switches, wigs. Circa 1919. Traffic officer at 14th Street and Pennsylvania Avenue. April 1941. Street scene, Chicago Black Belt Dot. April 26, 1923. Opening game. Washington's first game of the season at Griffith Stadium, where President Harding tossed out the ball and the Nats bested Philadelphia 2-1. April 24, 1923. Washington, D.C. Canadian horseman Jack Pestage on his thoroughbred Tipperary. From the Linda Kodachromes, circa 1948, comes our latest look at the little lady, accessorized with rattle and ducky. Circa 1913. Main Street, Tarrytown, New York. Let's meet on the wicked side of the street. The enchanting Gaynor Goodman in swimsuit. November 4th, 1937. General Alexander Macomb House, 125 Main Street, Belleville, Essex County, New Jersey. Remarkable for being a 7-bay front. New Zealand, 1907. Wanganui Herald newspaper staff and bicycles, photographed by Frank J. Denton. Newsboys holding copies of the Yeoman and Herald. Little Rock, Arkansas, circa 1910. Main Street, home to a number of intriguing juxtapositions. (1920) Barrett Company, Alexandria, Virginia. March 1943. More Marceline, Missouri. A dispatcher at work in the Atchison, Topeka, Santa Fe Railroad offices. (1922) Washington, D.C. Radio at District Jail. Programming for a captive audience. March 1943. Marceline, Missouri. A dispatcher at work in the Atchison, Topeka, Santa Fe Railroad offices. (1920) Barrett Company, Alexandria, Virginia. From a series of photos commissioned by the Paving Company. New York, 1917. Helen Campbell. A Hunter College student licensed as a wireless operator during World War I. December 1942. A landing wheel, with its huge rubber shoe, is trundled out in a service tractor to a new B-17F Flying Fortress bomber awaiting completion at Boeing's Seattle plant. (1962) Harley-Davidson with a baby seat somewhere in New Jersey. People riding motorcycles, including members from various state chapters of the Motor Maids. Washington, D.C., circa 1950. Waffle shop on 10th Street. Exterior from side angle day. For Bernard L. Fishman. July 14, 1941. Vladeck Houses, Madison Street, New York City. W.F.R. Ballard, Sylvan Bien, Shreve, Lamb Harmon, Architects. Washington, D.C., circa 1924. No caption. Paging any of the boys in this photo. Explain yourselves. December 1942. Production of B-17 heavy bomber. A skilled team of men and women workers at the Boeing plant in Seattle complete assembly and fitting operations on the interior of a fuselage section for a new B-17F. Wellington, New Zealand, circa 1950. Household appliances including washing sewing machine, mixer, toaster, polisher, and heater. December 1908. Boy at warping machine, Catawba Cotton Mill. Newton, North Carolina. May 1943. Pitcairn, Pennsylvania. Twins Amy and Mary Rose Lindich, 21, employed at the Pennsylvania Railroad as car repairman helpers, earning 72 cents per hour. Washington, D.C., 1931. Diorama depicting Homo Sanitatis Janitorii about to strike. Dayton, Ohio, circa 1902. 3rd Street Presbyterian Church. November 1903. General Office, Leland Falconer Manufacturing Company, Detroit. Bonus photo for you, a beautiful retro woman. Stunning American actress Judy Landers, 1979. Anne-Marie Bardot is a French film actress, singer, photo model, and writer. Photo 1955. Judy Landers, American film and television actress. Photo shoot 1979. August 8, 1924. Stuart Short, John Ayres, Elliott Smith at White House, who seemed to be bicycling to Atlantic City in August. June 1942. Light tank, Fort Knox, Kentucky. New Zealand circa 1902. Three men at campsite doing odd jobs, showing one man chopping wood, one man doing dishes and the other man cooking, possibly Christchurch district. September 1942. Richwood, West Virginia station seen at departure of men to help in the harvest in upstate New York. Circa 1900. Barge Office, New York. Meet you at the lunch wagon. (1936). Mickey Rooney and Spencer Tracy in the film Riff Raff. Circa 1905. Main Street, Mackinac Island, where pedestrians may avail themselves of Bailey's, a buffet, bazaar, and bric-a-brac. (1954). Washington, D.C. Hibbs Building, 15th Street and Pennsylvania Avenue. Exterior. June 1943. Arlington County, Virginia. Arlington Farms, War Duration Residence Halls. Sunbathers on the sidewalk in the back of Idaho Hall. (1938). Stuttgart, Germany. Von der Six. Reichstagung der Auslandstischen. Hitler Youth in tent during festivities for the 6th Annual National Days of Foreign Germans. Washington, D.C., circa 1920s. Wrecked house is all it says on this undated and moldy 8x6 glass negative. May 1942. Southington, Connecticut. School children pledging allegiance to the flag. Circa 1911, our second selection from the panoramic series. Washington from Washington Monument. Landmarks include the State, War Navy building at left. New Zealand circa 1950s. Model with Wringer washing machine. I am woman, see me wash. Montgomery, Alabama, circa 1906. Commerce Street from Court Square, whose designer would probably be none too pleased with the telephone poles and wires sprouting from his fountain. July 1942. U.S. Naval Academy, Annapolis, Maryland. Rowing crew. March 1959. Home Economist and Anderson demonstrating appliances and features of RCA Whirlpool Miracle Kitchen of the Future, a display at the American National Exhibition in Moscow. February 1943. Moreno Valley, Colfax County, New Mexico. George Mutz's youngest daughter helping with the cooking. Washington, D.C., 1920. Lust Baby Show. Which is probably not what it sounds like, a baby contest at Polly's Theater organized by cinema impresario Sidney Lust would be our guess. June 1943. Arlington County, Virginia. Arlington Farms, War Duration Residence Halls. A room at Idaho Hall. Denver, Colorado, circa 1908. Welcome Arch and Union Depot, where blurry pedestrians risk the retoucher's brush. New York circa 1905. Park Avenue Hotel, 4th Avenue entrance. December 13th, 1946. Morris Lapidus, 256 East 49th Street, New York. Lapidus in his office. (1864). Point of Rocks, Virginia, vicinity. Redoubt Zabriskie on Appomattox River. New York, 1942. Catherine Crum, the wife of bandleader Eddie South, in the dental chair. Now, Mrs. South, if you'll just open a little wider, this won't hurt a bit. The Enchanting Marguerite, MP 1956. February 1943. Moreno Valley, New Mexico. William Heck Ranch. Mrs. Heck getting supper. Denver, Colorado, circa 1908. Welcome March at Union Depot looking down 17th Street. (1914). Cats in coveralls on Chin-Up Bar. Photo by Harry Whittier Fries, patient poser of anthropomorphic puppies and kitschy kittens. January 19th, 1956. Wellington, New Zealand. Anthony and Paul Banks with a Hoover washing machine. Washington, D.C., 1931. Man with portable radio receiver and phonograph, who seems to be using the amplifier to play a record into a microphone. The Flood Mansion, Nob Hill. after the 1906 San Francisco earthquake and fire, which was 117 years ago today. March 1940. The Flood Mansion in San Francisco, last seen here after being gutted by fire following the 1906 earthquake, 1,117 years ago today. Washington, D.C., 1931. The caption for this one is NO caption. What's going on here? Back to my Uncle Albert in his office at the Foot, Cone and Belding Advertising Agency in San Francisco's Rust Building about 1954. Washington, D.C. Mrs. Bobby's Group, 1924. (1905) R.H. Macy Company, New York. The famous department store. Corner tenant, Lucio's, the jeweler whose pearls, rubies and diamonds defied detection. February 1921. Washington, D.C. Army car at Connecticut Avenue Bridge. A sort of Model T on steroids. March 1940. McCoy Label Company, Old U.S. Sub-Treasury Mint, 608 Commercial Street, San Francisco. Detroit circa 1907. A glimpse of Woodward Avenue from City Hall. Washington, D.C., 1931. Man partially submerged in tank with breathing apparatus. March 27, 1934. Auburn, Placer County, California. General view of firehouse and commercial buildings at Grass Valley and Sacramento Roads. Fall 1941. Jackson, Michigan. Soldier granted a furlough to help with harvesting on this farm, watching threshing. February 1921. Washington, D.C. Army car at Connecticut Avenue Bridge. March 10, 1934. Weaverville, Trinity County, California. General view looking west. February 1943. Moreno Valley, Colfax County, New Mexico. George Mutz's daughter grinding meat on the ranch. Washington, D.C., 1931. Fingerprinting is all it says here. Supplementary thought balloon. Handcuffs. Bonus photo for you, a beautiful retro woman. Linda Lusardi, English actress, television presenter, and former glamour model. Photo 1980. Enchanting Samantha Fox at a photo shoot in a red bikini, 1987. Marissa Mathis is a model and social media personality. Photo from 1962. Summer 1914. Penn's second varsity crew team in Poughkeepsie. Rowers at the boathouse. Circa 1906. Mobile, Alabama Government Street. Look out, kids, it's the Detroit publishing photographer. July 1943. Rockville, Maryland vicinity. Private Harvey Horton, visiting the NC Styles Dairy Farm while on furlough from Fort Belvoir, Virginia, at dinner with the family. Washington, D.C., 1922. Fire layout answering the fire bell. September 1954. Photographs show actor Gary Cooper at home in California with wife Veronica and daughter Maria, and on patio smoking pipe. Washington, D.C., 1922. Fire layout answering the fire bell. The second installment of this thrilling series. My younger brother, riding his new bike. Our street was a cul-de-sac in Walnut, California. This was probably around 1968. It was a good place for kids to explore the nearby hills. We learned to ride bikes, spend weekend mornings hiking the hills, and staying away from our parents. August 5, 1959. Russians looking at television sets and radios at the USSR exhibition in Sokolniki Park, Moscow, next to the American National Exhibition. 1904. Fisher schooners at T Wharf, Boston. George H. Libet left. I purchased this 8x10 print at the swap meet. On the back is printed, Mr. and Mrs. Cliff McCorkle, proprietors of the 101 Broadway Pharmacy, Richmond, California, getting an order ready for delivery. November 5, 1957. Boston circa 1905. Scollay Square Station. Drugstore sodas 5 cents. None better. Washington, D.C. Flood, April 30th, 1923. Also some 91-year-old graffiti. EHLTD. September 4th, 1924. The future Norma Desmond shipboard in New York. Now where'd we put our close-up lens? February 1943. Moreno Valley, Colfax County, New Mexico. Dinner time on George Mutz's ranch. Our fourth visit with various members of the Mutz family. September 1941. Main Street of Old Mining Town, Leadville, Colorado. Washington, D.C., circa 1922. Automobile accident recreation with miniature cars. Go directly to jail. Circa 1905. Carnegie Steel Plant, Homestead, Pennsylvania. February 19, 1949. Lamont Library, Harvard University, Cambridge, Massachusetts. 5th level reading room. Coolidge, Shepley, Bulfinch Abbott, architect. August 1933. Washington, D.C. Crescent Limited train wreck. Washington, August 25, 1933. While thousands worked to overcome the havoc wreaked by the storm in the capital, 300 trainmen struggled with the wreck of the Crescent Limited. The Crack Extra Fare Express was hurtled yesterday from the tracks of the Pennsylvania Railroad. Lasses and Grasses circa 1920s. Nelson District, New Zealand. Row of young women, music hall dancers. In costume, standing barefoot in dance pose, wearing headbands, long strings of beads, Hawaiian hula-style grass skirts and anklets. October 1935. Washington, D.C. Capital Transit buses, F and 13th SDSNW. Just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street. Circa 1904. North Veranda, Manhasset House, Shelter Island, New York. (1904). Under the Great Oak, Manhasset Manor, Shelter Island, New York. Washington, D.C., or vicinity. Flooding. Aftermath of the Chesapeake Potomac hurricane of August 1933. Who can locate this waterlogged crossroads with good shop, hot dogs going for a nickel? Linda Carter is an American actress and singer, 1974. February 1943. Moreno Valley, New Mexico. William Heck Ranch. Mrs. Heck getting supper. June 1906. Ariel Mountaineer, New York to San Francisco and back. Percy McGargle and David Fassett on 162nd Street in the Bronx at the end of their 10-month, 11,000-mile trip in a 16-horsepower REO Ransom E. Olds touring car. New York or vicinity circa 1921. Byron on boat. The actor Arthur Byron and family. (1941). Free coffee served at the picnic grounds on the 4th of July at Vail, Oregon. July 1942. Washington, D.C. A Sunday picnic in Rock Creek Park. Mr. Cliff McCorkle, proprietor and pharmacist of the 101 Broadway Pharmacy, Richmond, California, preparing a prescription. November 5, 1957. July 1941. Fun at the water fountain. 4th of July picnic in Vail, Oregon. Circa 1904. The Churchill House. No location given, but neighboring images in this sequence were taken in Vermont. Circa 1905. Ohio River levee at Louisville, Kentucky. Note the U.S. Life-Saving Station. (1902). The Basin, Lower Spring, Banff, Alberta. A Banff Spring, without the hotel usually appended to that phrase. June 1914. Wisconsin varsity crew on the Hudson. Souvenir from the heyday of the Poughkeepsie Regatta. (1942). Melbourne, Australia. Beaufort torpedo bomber final assembly plant. Airplane, check. Guy in plane, check. September 17, 1935. These two 150-foot tall brick smokestacks on the Mall in Washington, D.C., were considered an eyesore and ordered demolished. They were erected when a central heating plant occupied the site. Circa 1900. C.S. Jackson Group on Dudley Walker's porch. Washington, D.C., circa 1921. Adams Iron Building, F Street. its ferrous nature echoed in the sidewalk of many manholes. An uncaptioned photo taken by Marion Post Walcott in September 1941, whose neighbors show bean threshing activities in the North Platte River Valley of Nebraska. So we'll call these guys the Legume Brothers. This uncaptioned 5x7 glass negative from the Detroit Publishing Archive looks to be far afield from that company's usual stomping grounds. Where in the world are we? August 21st, 1924. New York. C.G. Dawes. Charles G. Dawes, some 2 months away from being elected Vice President of the United States. His platform: helping the little man. March 1943. Fort Madison, Iowa. Shopton Locomotive Shops of the Atchison, Topeka Santa Fe Railroad. New York, 1917. The American soprano Marcia Van Dresser, who participated in war bond and patriotic programs at the Metropolitan Opera. (1904). Nelson House, Poughkeepsie, New York. Bonus photo for you, a beautiful retro woman. Debbie Ashby, former English glamour model, 1988. The beautiful Raquel Welch, in a fur bikini in 1966. Meg Miles, American pin-up model, singer and actress on stage and screen. Photo 1957. Spring 1937. This family without food and work about to be returned to Oklahoma by the Relief Administration. They have lost a baby as a result of exposure during the winter. Had to sell their tent and car to buy food. NIDA for Camp Holtville, Imperial Valley, California. 1943. Melbourne, Australia. United States Army Hospital. Patient receiving treatment in new fever machine which keeps temperature at 107 degrees. 108 degrees is fatal. No ice in basin and fan to cool head. 1929. Washington, D.C. or vicinity. And no caption, man in airplane. Circa 1912. New York Public Library building, with a variety of motorized conveyances. Washington, D.C. or vicinity, circa 1932. And no caption, boys camped in woods. New Zealand circa 1905. E-Class locomotive, E66, at the Petwan Railway Workshops, with William Godbeer standing on the front. Known as Pearson's Dream, designed by G. A. Pearson, and built in 1905 for use on the Rimutaka Incline, written off in 1917. Washington, D.C., circa 1932. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Filing fingerprints and mugshots. July 1943. Greenville, South Carolina. Air Service Command. Writing a letter home. Detroit circa 1903. Swimming pool, Belle Isle Park, evidently. No girls allowed. October 1943. Washington, D.C. Girls playing soccer in physical education class at Woodrow Wilson High School. Saddle shoes connects in a 1-0 nail biter. August 8, 1925. Dr. H.W. Evans, Imperial Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, KKK Parade, Washington. Circa 1900. Niagara Falls, New York. Whirlpool Rapids, Grand Trunk Railway, bridge with Michigan Central Cantilever Bridge in background. Circa 1908. DeSoto Hotel, Savannah, Georgia. Automobilists welcome. July 1939. Mr. Whitfield, tobacco sharecropper, with baby on front porch. North Carolina, Person County, near Gordonton. The Jersey Shore in 1904. Pier at the Inlet, Atlantic City. April 1924. Washington, D.C. Group holding Arkansas state flag. Regnant Populace. November 15, 1955. Dr. Joyce Brothers holds up her category, boxing, after winning $8,000 on the CBS television program The $64,000 Question. Dr. Brothers will return next week to decide whether to keep the $8,000 or risk it against $16,000. May 1925. Major John G. Quiegmeyer, formerly aide-de-camp to General Pershing, with Argentina, a 6-year-old polo pony given to him by the Minister of War of the Argentine Republic, General Justo. New Zealand circa 1905. Men doing chores at a campsite, all in striped tops, possibly Sumner, Christchurch. Circa 1910. Packet steamer Jazz, T. Staples. April 11, 1912. Detroit City Gas Company Foundation for Retort House. Washington, D.C., 1923. A.W. Leonard. National Photo Company Lensman. Artie. Leonard chasing a shot. September 1942. Civilian defense. Fire prevention. The careless smoker causes more fires each year than any other person in the country. He is to blame for 87,000 separate 1941 fires, which resulted in the loss of many lives and the destruction of $14 million of property. August 1942. Production. Parachute making. As these two girls thread shroud cords through the material, these yards of silk become more nearly recognizable as one of the parachutes turned out by this eastern plant. Pioneer Parachute Company, Manchester, Connecticut. New Zealand in 1909. The Rotorua Express leaving Auckland, alongside Customs Street East. (1922). Hoping for Harding. Group of women with automobile at White House. Charming Lou Varley in a 1970s retro photo shoot. Vicksburg, Mississippi, circa 1909. View along Washington Street. Circa 1905. Sorting Cotton Atlantic Cotton Compress Company, Pensacola, Florida. A trip to Disneyland in March 1957, taken by my dad with his relatively new Conta. Scanned from original Kodachrome slide. March 1943. New York, New York. Times Square on a rainy day. June 1944. Brooklyn, New York. Home nursing class held at the community house of the Church of the Good Shepherd. Also, the Basic 7 food groups. Washington, D.C., circa 1920. Washington Herald, 1210 18th Street Northwest. The business next door, its products having motored off into oblivion, is now a payway. New York circa 1908. Broadway and Trinity Building, with the Singer Tower bringing up the rear. March 1943. Washington, D.C. riding on a streetcar. More hats with netting. May 1937. One of 3 related Oklahoma drought refugee families on the highway near Lordsburg, New Mexico, going to Roswell to chop cotton. New York in 1908. Hotel Astor, Times Square. Note the fancy roof garden. Washington, D.C., circa 1922. NO caption: Children, police motorcycles with sidecars, and streetcar in street. From a series of photos whose subject seems to be traffic safety. Washington, D.C., circa 1922. NO caption: Streetcar stop. Our second sample from this series of traffic-related views. Who can locate the intersection? February 1937. Missouri family of 5, 7 months from the drought area. Broke, baby sick, car trouble. US 99 near Tracy, California. There's no caption for this yellowing print of a lady at an office desk with postage stamps, quite possibly on October 19, 1925. December 1908. Catawba Cotton Mills, Newton, North Carolina. It seems a pity that some of the spinning frames are so large that the children cannot operate them. Syracuse, New York, circa 1904. Genesee Street. Early 1900 standbys include the usual assortment of painless dentists and a misfit clothing parlor. The Jersey Shore circa 1908. Atlantic City Bathing Beach and Steeplechase Pier. Who out there can fill us in on human roulette and human Niagara? Washington, D.C., circa 1922. NO caption: Street near White House. Another of the Harris Ewing traffic photos, this one showing what looks like a wayward gas pump. March 1943. New York. Trucks in the Garment District. December 27, 1920. New York. The Hilger sisters Mary, Maria, Elsa, Margaret, Greta. Bonus photo for you, a beautiful retro woman. Linda Carter is an American actress and singer who represented the United States in the 1972 Miss World pageant. Photo shoot in 1969. Sex symbol of the 1970s. Photo shoot on the beach in a bikini, 1974. Atherine Bach is an American actress. Photo shoot 1976. (1951) Santa Barbara, California. Lana Turner lounging by the pool at the Coral Casino. April 1941. Children playing on the street. Chicago, Illinois. New York, 1957. Maya Angelou, full-length portrait, dressed for her part in the Caribbean Calypso Festival. October 23, 1909. New York. Dueling with wax bullets. Memphis circa 1906. Tennessee Club. Bonus points if you can identify the runabout. No caption. Our wayfarers from 1932 and last week are back, ready for a swim and or bath. January 11, 1941. Triborough Hospital for Tuberculosis, Parsons Boulevard, Jamaica, Queens, New York. X-ray viewing room. Eggers Higgins architect. Florida circa 1908. Blunt Building, Pensacola. Still standing, at the corner of Garden and Palafox. October 1942. State School of Mines in Golden, Colorado. Students in defense training courses at a famous mining engineering school listen as an instructor shows them how the machine operates. August 1942. Republic Drill and Tool Company, Chicago. Pioneers of the production line, women for more than a year, and company production figures have continued to soar. Knoxville, Tennessee, ca. 1941. Miscellaneous lot of photographs by Barbara Wright related to Tennessee Valley Authority projects and region. (1924). Probably the smallest plane in the world. Built by Edmund Allen of Washington, D.C., who was formerly test pilot for Army Air Service during the World War. New Zealand circa 1909. Class A locomotive, NZR number 419, at the Petwan Railway Workshops. July 23, 1925. Washington, D.C. Central Union Mission Outing Orphans Picnic. February 1956. Domestic worker fixing girl's hair. From photos by Bern Keating for the Look magazine article. The South versus the Supreme Court. What is a Southerner? Petwan Railway Workshops circa 1905. October 23, 1959. Hackensack, New Jersey. Bloomingdale's Bergen County. Girls 3 to 14. Raymond Loewy Associates, client. Washington, D.C., 1932. Metropolitan Police officer on motorcycle. Keeping the peace in the Gas House District. Circa 1906. South Avenue, Rochester, New York. Home to trusses, vaudeville and streetcars, and probably a painless dental parlor or two concealed from view. (1914) Costume kittens with thread and scissors and overturned sewing basket. New York, 1911. Battling, Bat, Nelson, left, and sparring partner, our fourth look at the scrappy lightweight boxing champ. (1955). Peggy Lee singing into tape recorder accompanied by Sonny Burke. Soundtrack for Walt Disney's CinemaScope cartoon feature Lady and the Tramp. (1922). Policeman directing traffic at 9th and G Streets, NW, Washington, D.C. Knoxville, Tennessee, ca. 1941. Miscellaneous lot of photographs by Barbara Wright related to Tennessee Valley Authority projects and region. Circa 1900. Soldiers and Sailors Monument, Cleveland, Ohio. (1954). Backyard rooms. Woman posed with yard equipment, outdoor furniture, appliances and utensils used to cook outdoors. Charming Lonnie Anderson, American actress. Photo by The Rocks, 1969. Washington, D.C., or vicinity in 1932. No caption, boys cooking over campfire next to no trespassing sign. 1966. Portable modular furniture box lodging, designed by Kenneth Isaacs to serve as all-in-one units for 1 or 2 people. Includes Isaacs and wife Barbara entertaining guests in their apartment. July 1942. Conservation. Rubber. This truck tire has run 146,000 miles. It is now planned to retread it with a life expectancy of at least half the original mileage. Detroit circa 1901. Excursion steamers Tashmoo and Idlewild at wharf. No loafing allowed. Florida circa 1905. Surf bathing at Palm Beach. No ocean was ever a prettier shade of gray. (1932), Washington, D.C. or vicinity. And no caption, boys camped in woods. Our second glimpse of these juvenile vagabonds. June 6, 1944. Times Square and vicinity on D-Day. Watching the news line on the New York Times building. June 6, 1944. New York, New York. Times Square and vicinity on D-Day. A D-Day triptych.